counselor to the president, Kellyanne Conway, and welcome back to Fox News Sunday.
Thank you, Chris.
Now that the full House this week has voted to approve and continue the impeachment inquiry, will President Trump stop blocking current and former administration officials from testifying?
Well, a little fact check there. The full House did not vote to authorize an impeachment inquiry. Just Democrats did. This belies Nancy Pelosi's...
It was a vote of the full House, and a majority voted back.
Fine, because the Democrats are in charge, have a majority in the House. But this is not, as Nancy Pelosi pledged and promised it would be, Chris, a, quote, overwhelmingly bipartisan move toward impeachment that is supported by the public. In fact, 2 Democrats voted with the Republicans. It was on political lines because the people in the House see this as a political exercise.
But
and I think it's very unfortunate.
My question.
Yes.
Will the president stop blocking officials from testifying before the House?
Well, you've seen a number of officials testifying.
But that's over the objection of the president.
The president has every right to exert executive privilege for a number of administration officials, current and former. But we've seen different people going up there and testifying. What we haven't seen is the fullness of the 8 or 10 hours each of them has spent testifying, because everything's, I guess, Adam Schiff's growing mushrooms in the dark in his secret process, which is unfortunate because you cannot put that toothpaste back in the tube now. You cannot cure what has been a flawed process from the beginning, where the president has not been afforded due process rights.
I promise I'm going to get to that.
But what I think is unfortunate is Adam Schiff comes out and tells us about the 10 minutes he wants you to know from 10 hours of testimony.
But I promise I'm going to get to that. I'm going to specifically ask Congressman Jim Himes, who's the #2 Democrat on House Intel, about that.
Who should probably be overseeing the whole process, because Schiff has no credibility.
Will the president tell John Bolton, who is scheduled to testify this week, not to appear?
Well, Ambassador Bolton publicly and his lawyer have said he's not sure he'll appear. That has nothing to do with the president. He's not sure.
But I'm asking you, what is the president telling Bolton?
I'm not sure the president has talked to Ambassador Bolton. But we as a White House will continue to exert executive privilege where we feel that it is necessary.
So the House vote doesn't make any difference?
We've done that. The House vote doesn't make a difference in terms of a flawed process somehow becoming open and transparent, and they should have done this from the beginning. 6 weeks ago, Tuesday, Nancy Pelosi said we're going to move toward an impeachment inquiry. Chris, it took them 5 weeks to hold a vote. Why doesn't she just hold a vote on impeachment? Where is the substance? What are we impeaching? Let's tell America, on what basis are we impeaching a democratically elected president of the United States, where our central governing principle in this country is the rule of law? On a phone call? Here's the transcript. Go read it, everybody.
Well, it isn't just a phone call, and we're going to get to the merits in a minute. But you brought up the closed door, so let me ask you about that. The president complains about the House conducting the investigation behind closed doors so far, but when the Republicans had control of the House in 2017 and 18, they conducted the investigation about Russia and interference in 2016 behind closed doors. When Republicans did the Benghazi investigation, they conducted it behind closed doors. And here's what the chairman of that inquiry said about this. Take a look.
People act differently when there aren't cameras in the room. Trust me when I say that. They're very constructive interviews when there is no camera.
So why is it okay for Republicans, when they're in charge, to conduct hearings, depositions, interviews behind closed doors, but it's unacceptable for Democrats?
Respectfully, Chris, this is about impeaching a president of the United States, which is an
Benghazi was about 4 Americans who died.
Because of the negligence of a woman who got defeated for being president of the United States.
Wouldn't you say that's pretty important, too?
And an ambassador,
wouldn't you say that's pretty important?
lied about a videotape being the reason.
Wouldn't you say Benghazi was pretty important?
I would say Benghazi was extremely important, and I will always be very sad
that 4 Americans died. But it was conducted behind closed doors, is my point. So why is it okay for Republicans to do
Chris,
it,
the president
but not
of the United States has no due process right. He's had no due process rights afforded to him in this whole process. And I'm told by our lawyers internally, I'm a fully recovered lawyer, but those who still practice and are in the White House tell me that there'll be 3 rounds, the 3rd round, until the president's lawyers can actually cross-examine or present evidence or challenge evidence. This is not the way that our rule of law, our system of justice should work for the president or for anyone else. And respectfully, I think there is no analogy to the ultimate result here, the ultimate goal here, which is to impeach a president and remove him from office as goes any other type of congressional hearing. This is an extraordinary event that should be undertaken in the most extraordinary proven circumstances, and we're nowhere near that. And yes, they thought, Nancy Pelosi thought, based on cable news cranks and Twitter trolls, that there would be 8 quid pro quo. quos in this call. Those of us who had read the transcript before she came out and said that.
Let's get into the merits.
No, she should have waited a day, read the transcript, and then decided.
Let's get into the merits. The president said this week that he wants Republicans to focus on the substance of the case. Here he is.
I'd rather go into the details of the case rather than process. Process is wonderful, but I think you ought to look at the case. And the case is very simple. It's quick.
So let's look at the case, because over the last 2 weeks, Fiona Hill and William Taylor and Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman, all of them top foreign policy officials for this president, have all testified about repeated instances where they saw that support for Ukraine was dependent on Ukraine investigating the Bidens. Isn't that the definition of a quid pro quo?
The fact is that Ukraine has that aid. They're using that aid as we sit here. Under President Obama, they got pillows and blankets. We've given them aid. No, that's important. They have aid and they have more aid and they're using it.
Which is that the way the aid was withheld until...
The Ukrainian president says he has no idea the aid was withheld and he, quote, felt no pressure. Why doesn't it matter what the two presidents who were involved in that phone call and in the entire transaction, and indeed in the bilateral relations between our two nations?
Does it matter that the top U.S. diplomat in Ukraine, currently the acting ambassador, William Taylor, said that there was a quid pro quo? Does it matter that Lieutenant Colonel Vindman, who was actually on the call, was so upset about it afterwards he went to see the NSC lawyer?
Yes, and by the way, I'll never question his patriotism. I do question his interpretation and why it would be relevant in this case, because it was rejected. And in fact, the Washington Post and New York Times this week, Chris, said that what Lieutenant Colonel Vindman suggested be added or corrected in the transcript would not have, quote, fundamentally changed what the lawmakers believe of that call. It did not affect the ellipses that are there. So we cannot impeach a president of the United States based on an interpretation of any staffer, Vindman, me, anyone else. We impeach presidents of the United States sparingly in this country because it has to be such an extraordinary moment that 67 United States senators say that president who's been democratically elected and likely will be again in one short year needs to be removed.
Let's just, for the sake of the argument, say, because it wasn't just a phone call. There was a long campaign by Rudy Giuliani and some others like Gordon Sondland, Kurt Volker before the call, and a long campaign by those same people after the call. This went on from the spring of 2019 up until September of 2019. Let's just say that President Trump did condition giving the military aid, withheld it and said it will be given out only if you investigate Joe Biden.
I haven't seen it anywhere.
Is that an impeachable offense?
You're giving me is that a high crime and misdemeanor? I wouldn't think so. But you're giving me a hypothetical. In other words, you're giving me a hypothetical.
I'm just saying, I think it's a clarifying question. If all of it is true, are you saying that it's impeachable or not?
Let's have these hearings. We're going to remove a president of the United States based on the fact that a couple of news outlets insisted, they still have their jobs, unfortunately, insisted that there were 8 quid pro quos in here, that he asked to investigate Biden and his political rival. I don't see anything in this transcript, maybe you can circle it for me, about 2020, about Biden as his political rival, about holding up aid, about quid pro quo. Zelensky is talking most of the time about how he learned so much from Donald Trump, drained the swamp. He's complaining about Merkel and Macron, not Trump and the U.S. in terms of helping out Ukraine. He knows he's getting more aid from Ukraine than he ever got from the US.
Let's talk about the timeline, because one of the things that you and other White House officials say, well, the aid was given anyway.
That's important. They're using it right now as we speak.
Okay, Ukraine, but let's talk about the timeline for giving the aid. Let me put this up. The aid was held up all summer, and it was finally released on September 11th, a month and a half ago. Here's the timing. 2 days before, the Inspector General informed the House Intelligence Committee about the whistleblower complaint. Kellyanne, the president didn't release the aid until the story was out.
You're trying to make that causation where it may be coincidence.
I find it an awfully interesting coincidence.
Well, they've got their aid, and that's what's important. And why
but how the aid came out, it was held up all summer till the 11th of September, and the only reason it came out was because...
No, don't say that. Don't go there. You don't know that.
It had already...
You have no idea that's why it was held up.
So you think it's a coincidence that the whistleblower complaint comes on the 9th and the aid is released on the 11th? You're suggesting that's a coincidence?
Well, I'm suggesting that you don't know what you were just about to say to be true. That the only reason it came out was because 2 days before a whistleblower that shifts staff was nefariously colluding with. Adam Schiff was colluding with the whistleblower, apparently.
All right, one final question. The Washington Post reports that a growing number of Republican senators are concerned about the evidence that's come out and are suggesting perhaps they will say that, yes, the military aid was dependent on Ukraine investigating the Bidens, that it was a quid pro quo, but that is not an impeachable offense. Would President Trump accept that as a way to get out of this controversy?
You act like somebody's giving you a plea bargain for a lesser offense. Of what crime is he being accused? And when will he have a chance to face the judge, jury, and executioner? Chris, what those Republican senators are saying, they're broadcasting to you and the rest of the world. I'm not going to be one of the 20 Republicans who goes with the Democrats and removes a Democratic elected president of the United States just because the Democrats can't figure out how to get him out.
Well, according to the report, they're concerned, though, that the evidence doesn't look good for the president.
Well, what they're concerned, I think the reason you saw every single Republican vote against the impeachment inquiry is because they have not seen evidence of a high crime or misdemeanor, so much so they couldn't even vote to have the inquiry go forward because of the way the inquiry has been so flawed. And by the way, the frustration in the Senate was also articulated by none other than Democratic Senator Chris Coons on Fox News a couple days ago, 2 short days ago. I watched him on your network. He says there's concern in the Senate that they're not taking up certain pieces of legislation, that they're not doing the people's business. This is a man who has Joe Biden's former Senate seat, who is endorsed him for president.
Kellyanne?
Why can't they vote on USMCA, drug pricing, health care, infrastructure?
We can talk about this during the commercial.
They're not doing the people's business.
And I promise you, and if you want to stick around, you can watch, I'll be asking a lot of your very good questions of Congressman Jim Hines.
They're not doing the people's business. They're wasting your money and their time.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Congratulations, Nationals.
Okay, on that, we can agree.
Thank you.